They in fact outnumbered all the Muslims in Medina, women, lads, and elders included. To tell the truth, if they had launched a surprise attack against Medina, they could have exterminated all the Muslims. However, the leadership inside the city was on the alert and the intelligence personnel managed to reconnoiter the area of the enemies and reported their movement to the people in charge in Medina. The Messenger of Allah, PBUH, summoned a high advisory board and conducted a careful discussion of a plan to defend Medina. After a lengthy talk between military leaders and people possessed of sound advice, it was agreed on the proposal of an honorable companion, Salman al-Farisi, to dig trenches as defensive lines. The Muslims, with the Prophet, PBUH, at their head, encouraging, helping, and reminding them of the reward in the hereafter, most actively and diligently started to build a trench around Medina. Severe hunger, bordering on starvation, could not dissuade or discourage them from achieving their desperately sought objective. Salman said, "O Messenger of Allah, when the siege was to lay to us in Persia, we used to dig trenches to defend ourselves. It was really an unprecedented wise plan." The Messenger of Allah, PBUH, hurriedly gave orders to implement the plan. 40 yards were allocated to each group of 10 to dig. Sahl bin Sid said, "We were in the company of the Messenger of Allah, PBUH. The men used to dig and we evacuate the earth on our backs." Some preternatural prophetic signs appeared in the process of trenching. Jabir bin Abdullah, seeing the Prophet, PBUH, starving, slaughtered a sheep, cooked some barley, and requested the Prophet, PBUH, and some companions to accept his invitation, but the Prophet, PBUH, gathered all the 1,000 people engaged in digging the trench and they started to eat until they were all completely full, and yet the shoulder of mutton and dough that was being baked remained as they were undiminished. A certain woman brought a handful of dates and passed by the Prophet, PBUH, who took the dates, threw them over his cloak, and invited his followers to eat. The dates began to increase in number until they dropped over the trim of his robe. Another illustrious preternatural example went to the effect that an obstinate rock stood out as an immune obstacle in the ditch. The Prophet, PBUH, took the spade and struck, and the rock immediately turned into a loose sand dune. In another version, Al-Bara said, "On Al-Khandak, the trench, day there stood out a rock too immune for our spades to break up. We, therefore, went to see the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, for advice. He took the spade and struck the rock, uttering in the name of Allah, Allah is great, the keys of Asham geographical Syria are mine, I swear by Allah, I can see its palaces at the moment. On the second strike he said, Allah is great, Persia is mine, I swear by Allah, I can now see the white palace of Madain.